now you should definitely open up the pair deck and input the code. It's on the screen, YSVWNE. I'm going to X out the code, but it's still going to be at the top right if you need it. YSVWNE. Now, yesterday we did this. I'm going to go ahead and skip this slide because we did actually establish the different types of traits. So we had dominant, recessive, codominant, and incomplete. What color was the flower of the dominant trait?
Red.
Red. How about the recessive trait?
White.
How about the codominant trait?
Red.
White and red. We spoke about how just like co-teaching last year on Zoom, you all had co-teachers, Ms. Chua and Ms. Perez, right? They were working together. They were both present, right? Both of these colors, red and white, are present in the petals, right? Making it codominant. And then last but not least, what color was the incomplete? Pink, right? It was kind of like a blended. It's almost as if you blended red and white paint to get pink paint. It is pretty incredible. Nature does a lot of incredible stuff. It kind of blends the two colors to create a brand new color. And that's incomplete dominance. So yesterday I just wanted to get you a little bit more familiar with some of these terms. Today we're going to go right back to basics. In the video, she mentioned that when it comes to codominant and incomplete dominance, that was non-Mendelian genetics. We're going to go back to simplistic old Mendelian, dominant and recessive. By the way, Mendelian, it's a fancy word of saying, it's a man named Gregor Mendel who came up with this dominant and recessive heredity. It's just a way to study genetics. So let's not let that word kind of confuse us too much. Dominant and recessive, this is what we're going to focus on. We're going to come right back to basics. Now I have a quick question. Are the traits represented with letters or numbers?
Letters.
Letters, right? And then today's warm-up, I'm gonna ask you all, if you were to use these letters, big R and little r, what could the genotypes be for these flowers? Write them on the side. Now take a look at this for a second. I just wanted to remind you all yesterday, eyes on me for a sec. Eyes on me. Table 4, table 5. Separately, the letters, whether they're big or small, if it's just one letter, those are referred to as alleles. On the count of 3, can you all say alleles? 1, 2, 3. Alleles. Those are the letters alone. Big R is an allele. Little r is an allele. As long as it's one letter. It doesn't matter if it's big or little. So what is this?
Allele.
What is this?
Allele.
They're both alleles. When we squish them together like this, that's when we get our genotype. So what is this? What is this? What is this? A genotype. And this particular one is a dominant genotype. Why? Can anyone tell me why big R, little r is dominant? They are different, meaning they're heterozygous. They're not the same. It's not like big R, or little r, little r. We learned about that yesterday. But that doesn't necessarily tell me why it sort of doesn't, but I'd like a more specific answer. Why is this dominant? She said because there's a capital R. Whenever there's a big letter, thank you by the way, whenever there's a big letter present, that means that the dominant trait is expressed. It doesn't matter if it's one big capital letter or two capital letters. As long as there's a capital letter present, it means that it's a dominant genotype. And is there a capital letter present in this genotype? Yeah. Is this one good? We already told me. Let's go, let's review this big R, little r. Is this going to be dominant or recessive?
Dominant.
Is this going to be dominant or recessive?
Dominant.
Is this going to be dominant or recessive? Recessive, great job, because they're both small. That's the only chance for us to get a recessive genotype. If there's ever a capital letter present, what does that mean? It's dominant, right? It doesn't matter if there's one or two capitals. If you see a capital letter in the genotype, that is a dominant genotype. So with that being said, I'll give you all 3 minutes to contribute to the pair deck. You can draw it or write it. I'd like you to tell me, using big R and little r, what could be the genotypes, so there are going to be 2 letters for each one, what could be the genotypes for these flowers? I'd like all the possible genotypes. Hint, hint, all the possible genotypes. I'll give you all 3 minutes to answer this. I'm getting some responses already. Great job. 3 minutes to answer this. You can talk amongst yourselves, work as a group. All the possible genotypes for dominant and all the possible genotypes for
Little R. Then for the
What is a capital R mean? If you see a
for
capital
the
letter,
recessive one is only small.
what single letters alone?
Only small. It's already a doctor. Because I'm working for it. I don't have a future. I have
Good. I'll give you a hint. Okay, so again, as long as the capital R is present, there's 1 or 2 dominant. You're not telling me which one. All right. Eyes on me. I want to go over some of these responses. 3, 2, 1. Let's take a look at some of these responses. All right. Right off the bat, I love this response. Take a look. We had under dominant, they actually gave me 2 genotypes, and Angel's pointing to this table because they established that there's actually 3 genotypes that are possible for both dominant and recessive. In table 1, can you tell me how you got 2 different genotypes for the dominant trait? Guys, I can't hear him.
Because the dominant trait is always going to show, but there's also a chance that it's going to, with the capital letters, it's always going to be dominant. Like there's always going to be a dominant trait.
As long as there's a capital R? He told me that as long as there's a capital R, the dominant trait will always show. I like that, right? Here we have a genotype with 2 capital R's. Is the dominant trait going to show with 2 capital R's? Yes. Here we have a genotype with 1 capital R and 1 lowercase r. Is the dominant trait going to show? Hold on. Table 5, table 6. Guys, eyes on me because I know you're drifting off a little bit. We have 2 genotypes here. As a class, I'd like to know, if the genotype is capital R, does that mean that this dominant trait is going to show? Yes or no? Yes. Very good. If the genotype is capital R, lowercase r, does that mean that the dominant trait is going to show? Still yes, because all we need is a capital letter to say that the dominant trait shows. It doesn't matter if there's 2 capital letters or 1 capital letter. What Gregor Mendel told us is that as long as there is a capital letter, the dominant trait shows. Here we have a recessive trait, which means that is there going to be a capital letter present? No, right? Or else it would be dominant. So the genotype lowercase r, dominant or recessive? Recessive, right? Because there's no capital letters. It's lowercase r. So great job with this side. Let's take a look at some of these other ones. Same thing, good job. Same thing, good job. All right, so everyone seems to understand. On here, I didn't get a response for dominant, so just try to organize this a little bit better. These 2 are dominant because there's capital letters in the genotype. This is recessive. So here we have, this is correct, but it's actually missing one of them. So I asked for all of the possible genotypes, and that was like the hint. It was a pretty complicated question. So here we have capital R, dominant or recessive? Why? Are there? Oh, I heard dominant from back there. Did you?
No.
All right. Can someone from that table tell me why this genotype is dominant?
Because the capital R.
Because it's capital R. Is there another genotype that would also be dominant?
Capital R and lowercase r.
Why?
Because it's still capital R.
There's still a capital R, so dominant trait is expressed. Here we have lowercase r, which means that there's a recessive trait that's expressed. So I just wanted to make sure you all understood that before we moved on. And with that being said, you can all take out the booklets from yesterday. We're going to go ahead and work to finish that today. So take out this booklet, looks like this, and we'll get started.